if you can succeed as a soldier, you can absolutely crush entrepreneurship.
That's Dane Maxwell from the Foundation. Up next on Veteran on the Move.
Welcome to Veteran on the Move. If you're a veteran in transition, an entrepreneur wannabe, or someone still stuck in that job trying to escape, this podcast is dedicated to your success. And now, your host, Joe Crane.
The top 7 paths to freedom is my free gift to you for listening to the show, featuring 7 great ways for a veteran to take their first step into the exciting world of entrepreneurship. To receive your free gift, go to veteranonthemove.com, or if you're listening on a mobile device, you can text the word veteran to 38470. Dane Maxwell's organization, the Foundation, helps bootstrapped entrepreneurs build businesses to maximize their freedom and impact on the world. The Foundation is a 6-month intensive program that teaches entrepreneurs how to start a business fast, even if you have no idea, no special skills, or limited cash to get started. Since 2011, over 1,500 have taken the leap into entrepreneurship. They learn more about business and themselves during the Foundation than most do in a lifetime. Recently, Dane has applied his skills he has learned in entrepreneurship to music and is coming out with a new album on February 14th. Dane Maxwell, welcome to Veteran on the Move. Thanks for being here and sharing your entrepreneurial story. Really appreciate it. So before we get to talking about everything, I mean, some of us may have heard you before. I know I have on talking about your first organization, the Foundation. Take us back a little bit and tell us where you're coming from. Have you always been in entrepreneurship and that kind of thing?
Well, hey Joe, thanks for having me. I was born in 1983. I'm 33, and I was born fighting for my life. The very first moment of life, I was choking on my own feces, and I almost died right at birth. And then I went on to have a really traumatic first year and a half, to pretty much just associating most of my life, if not all of it, with pain, all the way up till pretty recently. So my body and my nervous system got wired to just live in a world of pain. I'd have shots administered to me in my arms while I was asleep at night. I was tremendously bullied and picked on by kids who were afraid of my heart. And so I just went on to just experience so much rejection that my heart just started to understand and expect rejection, to the point where when I went from high school to college, I thought that I might have a chance to then prove that I could be a likable guy to other people around me, only to, quote, in quotes, fail at that and just kind of slip back into the same way I was treated in high school for the most part, and bullied again, attacked by the same fraternity that rushed me. The rush chair that rushed me would end up tackling me and attacking me. And it's one thing to say, but I think the hearts of men are far more tender and far more innocent and capable of being hurt than I think men are aware of. And for me, it was just for me to be walking in a hallway with my peers and to be seen being tackled while everyone else is laughing in college. I mean, at this point, the impression had been set in my emotional system that I am not valuable to the people that are close to me. Now, this ends up creating a lot of pain, so much pain that I distance myself as far as I can from my heart, the same heart that when I showed people would get rejected. And I found a world where the men were valued, respected, even admired. And really the only thing that I could see that would differentiate these men that were admired was that they worked real hard and that they understood pattern recognition. But I didn't know that at the time. I just knew that intuitively. Pattern recognition meaning like, well, if you're in the military, I'm sure that guns have certain patterns or certain formations. The enemy will usually follow some sort of pattern when it attacks you. When you know those patterns, it can give you a lot of confidence on the field, I imagine. And the same goes in business. Once you understand in entrepreneurship, once you understand the inherent patterns that run a very profitable, very lucrative business, and you understand the patterns just as well as you understand how to put together a gun or take it apart, whatever those patterns are, that's when you start to feel really confident in business. But what happens, so I have experienced a life where I've just been treated really poorly. And my heart just learned to recognize rejection. When it came to people actually valuing me, it was such a foreign thing for me to feel valued that I would usually either reject that person or get far away from them. So in business, I worked really hard. And I found business because that's where the men were admired and respected and valued. You know, they're on the covers of magazines. Like, how can I figure out? Well, I decided that if no one was going to value my heart, that maybe they might value what I do in business. Mm-hmm. So I perfected a method of giving people what they want in business, which became the foundation. I ended up making millions of dollars in revenue from both my software companies and then also the foundation. But millions can seem like a lot of money to someone that doesn't really understand the patterns of business. But once you understand that $1 million is 88 grand a month, and to make 88 grand a month, you just need 880 people paying you $100 a month. And now you're at 88,880 people. And you make 88 grand a month. Now you're sudden, okay, how do I get 880 people paying me $100 a month? And now all of a sudden you've got some structure to move in business, and it starts to feel a lot more attainable. So I got really, really, really good at business because I wanted to be really, really, really valued by people. And it ended up, I ended up becoming so potent in business and so visible that in the background, I really started to collapse because I was being valued and admired by so many people. And it was really, really breaking me because my nervous system wasn't able to handle that. So I would remember moments, the way that I love people and the way that I express that love to them in the foundation is what creates such remarkable students that graduate the foundation. It's a badge of honor for people that go through the foundation. They won't say they bought it. They'll say, I went through the foundation, which means they got to experience unconditional love from me and everyone else as they're really trying to go after the tender desire of their heart, which is to be a free man. And so what happens is I get the end of these conferences, or the end of the classes. We have an in-person event, and when I come up on stage, I've spent 6 months with these people. When I come up on stage, the room erupts like a volcano, standing up, cheering, clapping for me, and they kept cheering for minutes. And even 1 minute of cheering is quite a bit, right? But you get up to 2 or 3 minutes, you're like, man, these guys don't want to sit down.
Yeah.
And for me to receive that much appreciation when I have grown up wired for rejection, then my body's just not used to it. And it's actually way, way, way harder than I think most people know. If you are wired for, let's say, battle on a battlefield, and then you come over to a place where there's no longer battle, but your nervous system, your neural structures, your emotional system are all built for looking for enemies, for expecting this, for expecting that. To make that transition on the emotional system is deeply traumatic. Right. And in the military and even so-called experts, I believe are completely ignorant to what it takes for the emotional system to adapt to a new environment. It's not easy, and it infuriates me because I am now a singer-songwriter. Couldn't be further from a guy who's building businesses. But if I distance myself from my heart long enough, I forget my heart long enough, I forget that my heart's even broken. Especially when you're making enough money, you got all these accolades from people, you confuse what the world rewards you with. I confused what the world rewarded me with what I actually enjoyed doing. So I see this whole conglomerate of men that are doing things that they're good at, but not doing things that feel good to them.
Oh yeah.
And they're not able to feel that it feels good for them because their emotional systems are offline, and they confuse sensations like adrenaline or fear, which are basic responses. They can confuse, oh yeah, I do feel things, but really the emotional system is offline. So That's kind of like the background story. I built a number of software companies, and I followed all those tactics. I read the right books. I found the patterns, and I started businesses when I had no money. I had no idea. I had no experience. I had no credibility. I did it from my parents' toy closet in a basement. And if you Google my name, you can see probably 50 interviews of me around the internet on how I've built those different businesses. If that interests you in learning, that my primary interest is for the men listening to let you know that the transition is brutal, and it's brutal for reasons that you're probably not taught. And I hope to shed some light on that in this interview.
Absolutely, Dane. Wow. Great way to kick it off. You know, I have heard you a couple times previously, and one of the things that I find fascinating, I mean, we can talk designing software and making millions of dollars, and you know, you've helped a lot of people do that. But if you could touch a little bit on what do you do when you first bring somebody into the foundation, because it fits very well with what you've already been talking about, you know, mentally and emotionally.
Well, the thing is, when I first started teaching entrepreneurship, I gave people the equivalent of a Porsche or a Lamborghini out of the gate. And they never learned how to drive a Porsche, a manual transmission Porsche. And so they're crashing these Porsches down the street, and they keep crashing for a long time. And then I'm realizing, like, oh man, like I spent years building the neural structures of my brain around business. So I get in a Porsche, I fly with it. If you hand me a Beretta 50 caliber big sniper, I'm probably going to blow my eye out with this. You know, those things look nuts. Like, because, you know, and I was giving people Beretta 50 calibers in entrepreneurship. I was like, all right, guys, go out and do this, and then like they would go and do it fearlessly. But so now I've learned about how the brain works, and how more importantly, how the emotional system works, and the triune brain. You have the physical brain, the logical brain, the emotional brain. And the primary reason that so many people struggle with life purpose, and why life purpose is so hard, is because their emotional system is offline, and they aren't even aware of it. Because what happens is, if your emotional system's offline and you're not wired to feel valued, significant, adequate, because you're used to feeling inadequate, insignificant, or worthless, when you move into your purpose and you start to feel valuable, worthy, or value and worth are the same, significant and adequate, your emotional system will kind of fire off threat. We're not used to this feeling. And so you'll misperceive value. You'll misperceive what good is, because it's a threat to your nervous system, even though it's a positive experience. So what happens is, this is the primary reason I believe that most people struggle with life purpose, is they have a broken emotional system and they don't even know it. So what happens with people that come into the foundation is we try to turn on their emotional system. We turn on their entrepreneurial brain by start wiring their brain. We teach them the mindset for entrepreneurship, real simple things like, you know how the military is so structured? If you brought that same structure that you live within the military into your entrepreneurship business, and you were told what to do at what time and for at what period of hours, you would likely slaughter most of your competition, because most of the entrepreneurs that I know, they're good, but they ain't as disciplined as a soldier.
Right.
And the disciplined in business are really generally have quite a bit of freedom. So in the military, what time do you guys usually wake up when you're in boot camp?
Usually, you know, sometimes it's 04, 05 in the morning when boot camp, when it kicks off. All
right. So imagine, so you wake up let's say you wake up at 5 in the morning, but now you're building a business, right? So if you apply the same structure that you have in the military to building a business, it might look like this. And this is what I would do with a veteran if they came in to entrepreneurship. See, what I would do is I'd look to the veteran. I'd see, all right, so what are the skills that they bring? What are the structures they already have? What already makes sense? And I'd help them bring their existing world into the new world, so it's not this hugely traumatic new foreign world where they're trying to breathe underwater like a fish. So what happened is they say, okay, at 5 a.m., here's what you're going to do. You're going to go ahead and study the greatest sales letters of all time. You're just going to study for the first hour from 5 to 6 every morning. You're going to read really, really great examples of sales letters that sell millions of dollars of products. and you're going to do this for a month from 5 to 6, and you're just going to read, and you're just reading over and over and over again to start looking for patterns. Because if you read enough sales letters, soon enough, you're going to be like, oh, that's how you sell a product. And the nice thing about good sales letters is great sales letters generally talk about the origin of how a product is made. So by studying the sales letter and you see how to sell, you see how they made the product. After you see enough examples of successful salesmanship, you will start to find the patterns to do that on your own. So from 5 to 6, you would do that. From 6 to 7, I'd have you cold calling businesses where you're just going to call people on the phone. And if you can fire a gun in the military and go overseas, then you can freaking cold call a business. and so, right. And so like, I'd have you cold call businesses, and I'd have you be doing very, very compassionate based, care based interview research to understand and learn about a market. So you might call, I don't know, for whatever reason, the thing that just came to me is like guys who make metal detectors.
Sure.
So you might call up guys who make metal detectors, and then you might just call and say, hey, you know what? I'm a veteran that just got done serving in the military, and I'm looking to start my first business, but I don't actually have any products to sell. And I'm wondering if I might be able to serve you or your industry. I'm wondering if I could ask you a few questions about your business. You're going to get most people that say yes, just probably because you mentioned that you're a veteran.
Right.
Now, and then you go ahead and you ask them questions like, so can you tell me about what are the things that you love to do in your business? The things that you love to do in your business. And then what are the activities that interfere with those? And then you became a guy that helped business owners do what they love and get rid of the things that they don't love to do. That would be probably an initial pathway. And we're only talking about the first 2 hours of the day there. And imagine, that's entrepreneurship in 2 hours a day.
I've heard you talk about this before, and it's very powerful, and it obviously works. So
works really well. I called CrossFit companies yesterday in front of 90 foundation students.
Oh, really?
Yeah, just out of the blue. It was hilarious. Yeah.
Because that's really the basic, like in the beginning of what we're calling the foundation, that's really what was your angle. You find something they need, something they don't like to do, find their pain points in their business, and not like the pain points they mention off the top of their head, the real pain points, the ones down deep that they may not even realize where it's coming from. And then you come up with a software solution to solve that. Yeah.
So since I've iterated it, sometimes it can be a blaring obvious one, and then sometimes it can be a real deep one.
Mm-hmm.
And the blaring obvious one, most businesses will say is, I need help getting customers. But and if you were like, okay, so just high level, if you were to want to just be able to print money, you can print money. In fact, my secret group of friends, I call them a secret group of friends because they're these guys that just basically print money. And all of them are currently just playgrounding with Facebook ads. But when Facebook disappears or Facebook ads become irrelevant, then what? What's the skill that allows them to print money on Facebook? And when I say print money, I mean like when you get good at it, you could just say if you want to make 10 grand in a day, you could figure out how to do that. It's just a skill like learning how to fire a gun. I've watched thousands and thousands of people learn these skills in business. Come from nothing, right? Architects that now meet with Tony Robbins because they're so successful in entrepreneurship that I've trained. And it's just very possible for you to do. And that's very much an outlier of like thousands of students, but they just worked real hard. She was an architect. But I've actually just lost my train of thought because I was getting so excited about a particular idea. Can you bring me back to where we just were?
Yeah, as a matter of fact, Dane, this might be a good spot for us to take a quick break, and we'll be right back. We'll figure it out and be right back. Have you joined the Veteran on the Move Facebook group? I personally invite every guest that I have on the podcast to join the group. So the Veteran on the Move Facebook group is a great way to connect with previous podcast guests. Our Facebook group will keep you in touch with other veterans that are transitioning to entrepreneurship, and you will also get great updates and free guides on the people, programs, and resources that will help you in your transition to entrepreneurship. All right, we're back with Dane Maxwell. I think we got our train of thought back on track. So Dane, continue on with what was going on for a while there in the foundation.
Well, yeah. So the high level of the foundation is you cold call businesses to find out about them. So really briefly, I cold call a CrossFit. CrossFit goes ring ring. I say, hey, is a manager in? They say, yeah. What's this regarding? I was like, a potential customer. And then I was like, crap, I just lied. But that's okay. Potential customer. And the guy gets on and I say, hey, I've got a quick question. I've got this thing I'm working on. I'd like to try to pitch you it, but I'm not sure if it's any good. So I wanted to see what you think. Would you be down for me pitching you this? And they 100% of the time they've said yes.
Really?
I taught this to monks, and monks did this with yoga studios. The exact phrasing is, hey, I've got this idea, but I'm not sure if it's any good or not. Can I pitch it to you and see what you think?
Huh.
And then people just say yes. So in the CrossFit example, I said, I'm thinking about putting together a group of CrossFit studios who all exchange ideas on how they fill their classes with webinars. Would that be something that would be valuable to you? And he's like, what would the context be? I'm not really sure. Yeah, all I really care about is that my members are healthy and that they're moving well so that they keep coming back.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, got it. Okay. So what if the group was to talk about things like that? He's like, you know what, that'd actually be pretty interesting. I might be interested in that. Paraphrasing a little bit, but pretty much. He's like, can you send me an email so I can see about maybe coming to one of the future ones, or check out and send it to my owner and see if we'd like to join it. First call, 3 minutes. Pretty interested person. Huh. Then I call the second CrossFit, and I said, hey, is your manager in? And they're like, they're with a client right now. What's this regarding? And this time I wanted to be in integrity, right? I caught on the spot, and I just kind of fibbed a little, and I felt really bad about it. So I said, well, actually, I might be able to ask you. And he said, yeah, sure, go ahead. And it turns out this guy was super informative, but here's what I said next. Look at everything I learned on one call. I said, hey, so I'm calling about a business that I'm starting called the CrossFit Collective. I just made this all up right here. And we're actually thinking about exploring how CrossFits can share ideas for how they keep their members healthy and moving so they keep coming back. Would that be something that would be valuable to you? And then he says, well, actually, we keep all of our classes pretty full. We're not really in need of information like that. It's like, oh, cool. Well, hey, you know what? Maybe you could actually be one of the CrossFit studios that I interview to share with other CrossFits. Yeah, we might be interested in that. Send an email here and I'll forward it to the owner and we'll get back to you. And he said, great. Can you just tell me also what kind of information would a business like yours be really hungry for? And he's like, well, we're really trying to figure out how to sell more retail products out of this place. So it'd be really nice to learn how the retail side of this could work.
Mm.
All right. Now, this is 2 calls, and I've already got all this knowledge about CrossFit. And what I'm doing is I'm calling with compassion and care to serve. Right. So that's the kind of stuff that can happen within 15 minutes. Your whole life can change. Now, how low would the self-esteem of a soldier have to be when they come out of the military to take crappy offers?
Well, it happens all the time. I mean, a lot of times, I see it all the time. Guys get out of the military. They don't really have much of a plan. They've been getting a steady paycheck for, 4 years or 10 years, whatever it may be, every 2 weeks. And the only thing they're desperate for is just a paycheck. So guys take anything. And then the trouble begins, because then they realize what they've done.
Well, thank goodness for what you're doing then. So if people listening get nothing out of this, I'll say it a few ways. If you can succeed as a soldier, you can absolutely crush entrepreneurship.
Rock on.
If you can succeed in the military and apply that same zeal and discipline, zeal, how do you say that? Zeal?
Zeal. I think it's Zeal if you're from Des Moines.
If you can apply the same strength and masculine penetration into business, if you can penetrate into the military, you can penetrate into business. It is a skill that you can learn. You need really only read one book over and over and over again if you only had to have one. It's called The Ultimate Sales Machine by Chet Holmes. And you read that book and you will never have to doubt if you can be successful in business. You might still doubt, right? You probably doubt after one book, but that book, you read that one book, you're like, oh my gosh. That book is by a guy who doubled 9 of Warren Buffett's companies. Warren Buffett's the really rich dude. This guy went in and he doubled 9 companies, and he followed the same process for every company that he doubled. He put that process in that book. You can replicate that process and never have to worry about money again. It is totally a skill. So for you to think that money is this arbitrary, mysterious thing, very kindly tell the people that told you that to screw off. You can build the skills of entrepreneurship, especially if you apply the same discipline that you had as a soldier. Now, speaking to the self-esteem of a soldier, now I'm going to, at risk of whatever, I'm just going to say what's really on my heart. Please do not just take an offer that's on your table, because now I hope you have installed in you the belief that if you can apply the same discipline as a soldier to entrepreneurship, then you can succeed. And I've given you the first path. Read The Ultimate Sales Machine. That all being said, now you want to be careful about why you're doing certain things. Now, how quickly can you start making money? Well, if you go immediately to a job, you're probably going to start from $2,000 up to maybe $5,000 a month for different jobs that you might take right out of the military. I make multiples of that every day. In a single day, the amount of money that moves through the different businesses and bank accounts I have is what you will make in a month. What is the difference between you and I? I learned the skill of entrepreneurship, the skill that I want you to learn. I want you to make more than me. Because quite frankly, money, more than anything, money is just this kind of thing that I resented while I learned to master it. Now, that all being said, kind of transitioning, Joe, into the music side of things, because I want people to understand that while I succeeded really wildly in entrepreneurship, my heart had a pull on it to hold a guitar, or a pull on it to sing, really. And I couldn't actually ever do that, because what would happen is, remember, I was rejected, I was bullied, I was beat up, I was treated as worthless for most of my life. So guess what happens when I pick up a guitar and I start to sing? I start to feel valued to myself. But do you know, if I've been reflected that I'm a worthless person based on how people treat me, when I start to pick up a guitar and play it and feel valued, my body would shut down. My body would completely shut down. I remember playing guitar for about 6 friends in a room, and there was a couple girls in there, and I played this one thing on a guitar that was really pretty. And I was like, whoa, I don't know how I did that. And I played it, and I watched the girl, her eyes rolled in the back of her head. She liked what I played so much. And I freaked out. It made me feel very potent and powerful. And I put the guitar down and I stopped playing right there on the spot, because I couldn't sustain the feelings of potency. I couldn't sustain the feelings of feeling valued. I couldn't sustain them, Joe. My heart was broken. No, I couldn't. It took me a year to work up to that, because every time I did, my emotional system would perceive these positive feelings as a threat, so I'd have to stop. So my life purpose has been following me my whole life. Since I was 8 years old, I asked for my first guitar, but I didn't get one then. I didn't start playing until I was 21. Trained for my first open mic night, hurt my voice, gave up on music for 10 years, went into business. I'm at a church service, and this guy's praying over the entire church, and he just happens to highlight me in the church. He's like, son, for whatever reason, God just wants you to know that he took a gift away from you 10 years ago because he didn't trust you with it, but he trusts you now, and he's giving it back. And immediately I thought, oh my gosh, my voice. And I started sobbing.
Wow.
So you see, I succeeded so wildly going up the wrong ladder, and I went up the wrong ladder for 10 years. Now I get to use all the skills that I learned in entrepreneurship, and I kind of did it I think the deeper part of me strategically knew what I was doing the whole time. Maybe I didn't. I'd like to think I did. That one's kind of up for interpretation. But now I've got this financial situation that I'm able to be in. And I now work with like top vocal coaches. Like I work with the same vocal coach as Alicia Keys, as Lenny Kravitz, as Jessica Simpson, as the lead singer of Guns N' Roses, Axl Rose, of Maroon 5, Adam Levine. I get to work with this guy because of the financial skill that I built in entrepreneurship. So I really think that you could do a lot of good by learning entrepreneurship, even if you decide to never go in it, by picking up that book, by taking that first action. And I also caution everyone here to really understand their emotional system, to understand what their life purpose might be. And so as an entrepreneur who turned into a singer-songwriter because I finally realized that I was seeking to be valued in business, I realized my own value. The realization of my own value is an ongoing thing for me. It's here and there, and it feels really nice to look in the mirror and look at my own eyes and say, "You're a beautiful man, Dane." And for me to hold the belief you're a beautiful man, while I'm holding a belief like that, if you look in the mirror as a soldier, you're back, and you look in the mirror, you look yourself in the eyes, and you feel your heart, and you say, "You are a beautiful man." To yourself, you say, "I am a beautiful man." And from that place, what action would fill your heart? What action would have you feel full? What action would give you the sense of peace that being mission-driven and aligned can provide? That'd be a good first step. And if you take the time to build the skills of entrepreneurship, whatever your life purpose is, the skills of entrepreneurship, I think will add a ton of fuel to the tiny fire. Now, if you think about how long it took you to become good as a soldier, how long is the boot camp, Joe?
It depends on the service. It's anywhere from 8 to 12 weeks.
So, when you first come to the boot camp, I imagine the first day, week, couple weeks are like, your body's really trying to get used to it.
Oh yeah, it's a big culture shock too.
So culture shock, I can imagine, but I can't at the same time. Like I haven't experienced it, but I can ignorantly imagine and just estimate that you probably suck when you first come into boot camp.
Absolutely.
So you're probably going to suck when you first come into entrepreneurship. Give yourself 8 to 12 weeks of really going at it before you make any adequate assumption of what your ability is.
Yeah, it's definitely a fair assessment.
Yeah. So guys, those listening, the album about finding your life purpose, I wrote it while I was meditating in a monastery with monks. I wrote it while being deeply tuned in and connected. And I wrote the entire album as a 10-song experience to help you find your intuition, find that small voice, to strengthen it, to tell people to stay away from the things that are yours to do, all the way till the 10th song where you're shot out of a cannon, taking the first action towards your deepest purpose. And that song, you can find the album on probably iTunes, Amazon, all this stuff. You just Google my name, Dane Maxwell, or Dane Maxwell. You can find me on Facebook also, Dane Maxwell Music. And I hope that you give the album a listen to. If you choose to support me with the album, it's very appreciated. The album's like maybe $10 on iTunes. Those financial contributions really make a big difference for the team that I'm trying to build in music. And Joe, I really hope to hear from some of the soldiers. So please keep me posted on how the feedback on this episode has been for people.
Absolutely, I will. Dane, your album that you're talking about and your sequence of songs that you go through, the 10 songs, that sequence is almost sounds like a successful veteran transition who goes blasting out and becomes a great entrepreneur.
If I was cussing, I would say F yes.
All right, that's awesome. Dane, man, shared some sage advice and wisdom, so I appreciate you being here and sharing all that with us. One last thing. you've kind of already done this, but if I asked you if you're talking to that soon-to-be veteran who's going through the transition right now and they're thinking, yeah, I really want to go do this entrepreneurial thing. I don't want to go get the job. What kind of advice would you have for that person?
I would want to hold their hand. I'd want to sit at a table with them and hold their hand and say, thank you for what you've done for the country. I love you. Somebody loves you. And I want to see you become a success. And I'll fight for you as hard as you'll fight for yourself. Please go pick up the ultimate sales machine.
Awesome. Well, some guys may be a little uncomfortable with the hand holding, but I think you can come around.
Yeah, we don't have to hold hands. I just let them know. I'd let them know that they're lost. Because I think what happens is the soldiers come back. They're like, does anybody care about me? Yeah, I do.
Absolutely, they do. Especially because they leave their military unit in the town they were living in. Oftentimes they go back home or go somewhere else, and there's they lose all the contacts and connections they had. It's like starting over.
Oh, if you are feeling the emptiness from a transition, just being able to articulate, now my life feels empty. And if you can say that out loud and let it resonate and find the words that actually produce tears, like, what am I supposed to do with my life now that I feel so empty? If you can articulate your emotional system in a way that produces the tears, and instead of just walking around with a haunting experience of empty, you just sit down and turn and face the emotion, turn and face the feeling, turn and articulate the feeling. As soon as you give words to that emotional experience, it now becomes an object that you can observe in front of you. It doesn't make it scarier. It actually gives you the power and potency, because if you cannot articulate your emotional experience, you cannot live with power and potency in your life very well at all. So learn to articulate your emotional world, especially as you're coming back. And you will know, because you can sit down with pen and paper and you can write down the words. And if you have trouble articulating your emotional experience, give yourself a good 8-12 weeks, just like you did with boot camp.
Well said, Dane. I appreciate it again. And holy cow, it's deep stuff. Yeah, it's something that every veteran goes through. One, no matter how weak or strong, everyone goes through it at least a little bit, and that's some phenomenal guidance and good advice. So I appreciate it.
You're welcome. I hope the album helps more soldiers find their purpose.
Hey, it's coming out in February, right?
Yeah, on Valentine's Day.
How appropriate. Awesome, Dane. All right, well, we're out of time. So thanks again, and I'll definitely be looking up the book, Ultimate Sales Machine. I have not read that yet.
Yeah, and I don't think I ever said anything, but yeah, DaneMaxwell.com is where you'll find everything.
Okay, yeah, thanks. DaneMaxwell.com. All right, Dane, we're out. As you can tell from listening to the Veteran on the Move podcast, interviews are a great way to tell your story and spread the word about your business. If you would like to get booked as a podcast guest, I recommend Interview Valet. You can check out Interview Valet at veteranonthemove.com/valet. Be sure to check out Thrive15.com, the world's premier online education platform that helps entrepreneurs, aspiring entrepreneurs, and intrapreneurs learn how to start or grow a successful business. Start your free 30-day membership by going to Thrive15.com and use the promo code VETERAN. Thank you for listening to Veteran on the Move, your pathfinder to freedom. If you like the show, leave us a review on iTunes. Reviews are always greatly appreciated. So until next time, this veteran is Oscar Mike.